Well, they need a couple wide receivers, potentially. But this is the NFL draft to get one. We just saw the Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama, the 2020 version. Brendan Albert is here to discuss it with me. I am Adrian Fedke. So here's what we're going to do on this show. So obviously, Bitter Birds, we're kind of Eagles related. So we're going to look at the receivers. We're going to break those guys down, but we're also going to give some winners and losers that we saw during the week. So with that being said, let's welcome Brendan onto the show. What's up, man?
Adrian, thank you so much. You know this is my favorite time of the year, so please excuse me from geeking out like it's Christmas Day.
Oh, and here's the thing that we're going to do. I'm thinking we do this weekly until we kind of get closer to the draft, but each week we're going to look at a wide receiver. We're going to break them down on tape, and let me tell you something. There's like probably 15 to 20 guys who might go in the first 3 rounds. What do you think about that, Brendan?
Man, Adrian, I said this. Someone asked me, like, would I ever want free agency after the draft? And personally, I wouldn't. And for the Philadelphia Eagles, it's a perfect reason. Here's why I say that. There is so much great depth at receiver. Yes, there's a bunch of stars. There's a bunch of studs you get in the first round, no doubt about it. But you could still walk away with a guy on second round, third round that could instantly become an impact starter in this year's draft. And the reason I say why would I want free agency, especially this year before the draft, because if you can get a Byron Jones, you can get a Cliff Harris as a corner. Now all of a sudden you can go out and say, okay, hey, let's spend a first-round pick on a receiver. If you strike out for some reason on a corner, I'm personally okay with the idea of drafting a corner in the first round because there is a pretty large drop-off in the quarterback draft class this year. There's not as much of a drop-off at the receiver core. So to me, Adrian, because of the way this draft is set up, so many receivers, there's a lot of different ways the Philadelphia Eagles could attack the draft and still come away with a high-quality draft.
Yeah, that's a good point you make there because it brings me back to 2017. It was a loaded cornerback class. Eagles didn't go there in the first round. They went Derek Barnett. They addressed another need before they went corner. Then they went second and third round. They go with the cornerback spot with Sidney Jones and Rasul Douglas. And I can kind of see a similar type of pattern here maybe in 2019 with the receivers. If you don't go first round, maybe you go second and third round with the wideouts. I mean, again, like you said, there's just so much depth here.
Again, like you're in a really good position here, especially because the Eagles, they're in a spot where, they're fairly early in the first round. They're going to be outside of getting a Ruggs. They're probably looking more like a T. Higgins. It's probably a more realistic first round situation. Or the other scenario here, and this is kind of a bummer for the Eagles, is Jordan Love didn't really tear it up. And the reason I say that is, when you have a quarterback, you want every quarterback to do really well in the draft process to increase quarterbacks taken before you to push down players. I still think Jordan Love will go before them, but I think there's going to be a lot more teams that can say, hey, if he falls to us, like the Colts, great. But I don't see teams saying, now we got to trade up to go and get him. So, Adrian, I just get so excited about this. The Eagles are in an awesome position. This draft really should fall out pretty damn nice for them this year.
Yeah. All right, so let's take a look at some of these wide receiver prospects and kind of what we saw. So we'll start with the north side because the south side, they didn't show as much of the one-on-ones with the wide receivers and the cornerbacks. I also didn't even see day one because the NFL Network, at least on the East Coast where I was, they decided to replay the AFC Championship game. I don't know why. I didn't get to see day one of the Senior Bowl practices, but I did get to see day 2 and day 3, and I saw a lot of the North team. So we're going to start with those guys, and I'm just going to list the receivers first before we get into them. Okay. So we got James Pro Shea of SMU, Michael Pittman of USC. We got Denzel Mims of Baylor, KJ Hill of Ohio State, Antonio Gandy Golden of Liberty, Chase Claypool of Notre Dame, and Courtney Davis of Texas A&M. So those were the guys. Out of the names I just listed, who do you think fared best in Mobile?
This was definitely the better of the two rosters here, Adrian. But to me, I'm going to take Denzel Mims. And the reason I say that is he's going to be a guy, Adrian, he's not going to blow you away at the combine. He's not going to run a low 4.4. I would be shocked personally, Adrian, if he ran below mid 4.4, to be honest with you. So what does that mean? That means, okay, well, you got to look really good in these drills. And what was surprising about him is he did a really good job on the vertical ball. Now, normally those two things don't coincide. Normally you don't say, well, if you're not great speed, you're probably not going to be a great vertical player. Here's why it's so important for him. he looked fantastic at stacking. Let me explain what I mean by this, guys. Stacking. So if you imagine a receiver in a corner running for the ball, and all of a sudden the receiver gets in front of him, now what he's going to do is he's going to stack him, and a lot of times he'll actually intentionally slow down. So what he'll do is he'll basically kind of imagine like boxing out as that ball is thrown, and then at the last second he'll speed up. A guy in the NFL who does this very well, no, I'm not comparing the two of them. I'm not saying he's going to be this guy, but a guy who does this very well in the NFL, DeAndre Hopkins. He was not a guy who ran the low 4.4s, but he does a fantastic job of stacking on top of the routes. So to me, Adrian, Denzel Mims was my biggest winner. Close second, KJ Hill looked really, really good out of the slot at Ohio State. Michael Pittman also played really well here. I mean, there's a lot of upside, especially in the North roster here specifically, Adrian.
Yeah, I like that you brought up Denzel Mims, and I just got done watching day 3 of the practices earlier today, and I was seeing some red zone work, and the body control that he was exhibiting, he was toe tapping in the back of the end zone. The release quickness, you saw it on some of the quick slants that he had. His hands showed some good hands. So Denzel Mims, I'm in agreement with you. He looked really good to me as well. Another name that you didn't bring up that I'll bring up right now, James Pro Shea from SMU. He surprised me because when you think of SMU and some of these teams that really like to throw the ball a ton, you kind of think of a limited route tree, a vertical route tree there at SMU. Well, James Pro Shea was showing a little bit of everything. He was winning on the quick slants. He was winning on in the red zone. He was doing a lot of different things, and I was impressed by him.
And Adrian, I love what you said there about him, especially because he played so much in the slot at SMU. What does that mean? He's not facing a lot of press, right? Yeah. So now when he comes to the Senior Bowl, he gets to face a little more press, gets to see a little different type of press bail, press man, press under, all these type of situations that he probably wasn't seeing as frequently because he's playing in the slot. Now, Adrian, I still think he'll probably end up playing in the slot in the league, but it's still nice for him to be able to show that on film that he can play up on the line of scrimmage from time to time as well.
Yep. And another name that you brought up there was, as I got my names here, there it is, KJ Hill of Ohio State. And, I think of the wide receivers coach there, Brian Hartline, and the job that he's doing with all those guys, all these guys from Ohio State. Terry McClaren last year, perfect example of another one who just excelled, didn't really put up huge numbers, but did great in the league.
Ohio State's wide receiver you. I mean, at this point, I don't think there's really an argument here. I mean, they just seem to be turning out one guy after another. True slot killer. He's one of those guys that he'll give you death by 1,000 paper cuts here. He looked really damn good, Adrian, as well.
Yeah, let's get into Michael Pittman. That's another name that got some buzz this week. What were your thoughts on his play?
As I try to look at everything at first from a general standpoint, then I try to look at things from my Ravens, which is my NFL team standpoint. He's exactly what the Ravens need. Big, physical, tough SOB. Dad obviously is an NFL legacy as a former running back, and you can see it in how he's built. Adrian, this guy wants all the red zone. He wants all the physicality, but he actually did a pretty good job separating, which was something that is a big concern for him. So for him, I like him a lot. I think he'll probably be in that day 2 mix. I wouldn't be surprised, Adrian, to see him go to a situation and all of a sudden him have like a 6 to 8 touchdown season because he can dominate in the red zone early for you.
I'll be honest with you. All these North wide receivers were pretty much dominating the corner.
Yeah.
I like Courtney Day. I mean, all these guys are pretty much good. I don't have any negative things to say about any of them. The one thing I will say was I heard a lot of buzz about Antonio Gandy-Golden, and I didn't really see it like maybe everybody else did, but maybe they didn't show the amount of practice. I don't know. I didn't see some of the things that other people were seeing, but what do you think?
I think that's fair, especially when we're talking about an FCS receiver coming from Liberty, or now it's an FBS program, but fairly recently was FCS, definitely a lower level program. These are those opportunities that you really stare at these guys. You're not really necessarily as excited about looking at a guy like from a Notre Dame or Ohio State because you know what they look like when they're going against top competition. Yeah. So I hear where you're coming from, Adrian. He's one of those guys, though, that to me, it's all about where he gets drafted. If he gets drafted, probably a day 3 guy, but if he gets into a situation where there's a great receiver coach, he could really develop. Because let's be honest here, he's not getting elite level coaching at Liberty like some of these guys were getting at Ohio State. So he's very, very raw. He kind of reminds me of like Cornelius Ben, if you remember him coming out, one of those big, lanky, long guys. Probably not awesome at change of direction, at least not yet. So there is a lot of upside here for this one, Adrian, but I'm not taking him until day 3 because, the word potential means you haven't done shit for me yet.
Yeah. I noticed some quickness on the release, but I guess, I don't know. I guess I was expecting more considering like what I was hearing, so the outside noise, because I was hearing things before I even watched the practices. I didn't watch the practices until the weekend. And I was just, I guess, expecting more. Maybe my expectations of him were just too high. So other guys, I mean, Chase Claypool was making plays as well out of Notre Dame. I thought he helped himself.
Yeah, I mean, again, another one of those big guys. I mean, here's the thing, Adrian. I'm with you. He definitely looked good. Definitely looked better than Antonio here. But here's the other thing I'm starting to think. We just rattled off almost the whole North roster and said nice things.
Yeah.
Are we also just
corners
bad things about the corners? Yeah. Is that also what kind of we're also possibly saying here? Because I think that's a very fair statement.
I guess out of the corner, who I did like? Joseph Pride, the Notre Dame corner.
He's going to fly, man. He's going to be one of those guys at the combine that's going to explode. I really like the kid from Iowa. I'm not even going to say his name because I know.
I know what you're saying. Yeah.
But no, I mean, this is not a great corner class. So I think that's also, or at least shouldn't say that. This is not a great corner Senior Bowl. So that it's obviously going to help a lot of these guys uptick. But Adrian, I think a lot of these receivers are the real deal. I don't want to discredit them.
No, that's a good point. It's a good point you make about the corners, but I also do think they were this good. I mean, they were all winning their one-on-one battles. All right, so we're going to move to the south side now. Look at these wideouts. The guy that immediately stands out here is Van Jefferson and what he did this week. He was running some really clean routes, getting separation at the top of his routes. Van Jefferson's probably going to shoot up the draft boards now, you would think, right?
Every year, it seems like the Combine has one of those guys that just runs the Senior Bowl has one of those guys that just runs the crispest of routes, and you're just like, oh, shit, where's this guy coming from, right? Yeah. I mean, we talked about Terry McCullen years past. How about Deshaun Hamilton at Penn State in the past, right? Every year, there's one of those guys. Van Jefferson is absolutely this guy. Looked so absolutely clean in everything he did here, Adrian. He's going to be a slot guy. He's going to be one of those guys that's going to be able to give you death by 1,000 paper cuts. The biggest thing that I worry about with Van Jefferson, can he actually stretch the field vertically? That's the biggest thing I worry about him, or is he only going to be a guy who can really hurt you underneath? Also, one of those guys that bounced around a little bit. If I remember correctly, he was at Ole Miss before he was at Florida.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, you're at 2 big-name programs, and you never really had elite numbers. Now, is it because DK Metcalf and A.J. Brown were at Ole Miss and you didn't have great quarterback play at Florida? That's possible. Or is it the fact that, you're just going to be a guy who's only going to really hurt you 4 to 12 yards, but you're never really be able to stretch the field vertically about him?
Yeah. I'm curious if last year's lack of production from some of these wideouts who excelled like a Mcclaren, like we talked about before, if that's actually going to help him in the draft process.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very fair type of situation. I think for him, Adrian, I think his biggest thing is going to be the combine. I don't want to say he's a winner in my mind. The only reason I say that is because everything that he did at the Senior Bowl is what I already knew he could do in his film, right? So I don't want to give him double points for something I already knew. His biggest test is going to be the combine for him.
Okay. All right, so rattling off these other names here, we got Austin Mack of Ohio State. Ohio State, really? They got one on each side. Kalisha Lipscomb of Vanderbilt, Colin Johnson of Texas, Juan Jennings of Tennessee, the aforementioned Van Jefferson, Devon Duvernay of Texas, and then you got Brandon Ayuk of Arizona State. So out of the rest of those names, anyone else jump out at you?
Juwan Jennings is one of those guys, Adrian, that he's going to run a really crappy 40. I'm going to tell you it right now. He's not going to run it well, but he's really freaking physical. He's really good at the point of attack. He could be one of those guys that is a day 3 guy. If you draft him with the expectation of just saying, hey, go be our X receiver, possession, big body. If that's what your expectations are for him, I think he could be successful. But Adrian, there's a big drop-off, in my opinion, between the North and the South roster. The biggest loser of the South, in my opinion, is Brandon Ayuk for not being able to perform due to a medical situation. When you look at Brandon here, had 2 years at Arizona State, blew up this year, which is awesome. Didn't really show the numbers last year. Now, the obvious is, well, wait a second here. They had a pretty damn good receiver last year who was drafted 32nd overall by the New England Patriots. So maybe that's why his numbers weren't there. And before that, he was at a junior college. So he doesn't have a ton of film. So obviously this opportunity to really show is crucial for him. The reason I think he's a big loser, Adrian, is I think he's right in that mix with like a KJ Hamler who's at Penn State, who obviously didn't have the chance to produce at the Senior Bowl because he was an underclassman. This could have been a great opportunity for Brandon to really separate himself from that next pack.
That's a good point you make there. And I know that he's somebody that Louis Riddick was actually talking about on ESPN specifically. So, we'll see kind of how he turns out. The another name that I wrote down here is Devon Duvernay. Now, I like what I saw from him in some of his college tape. Out of all the other names, he's the only one that really stood out to me.
He was a guy, Adrian, that truly got screwed over by the offense at Texas. This is what I'm telling you. He's an explosive player with a quarterback who can't throw the football. That's pretty damn difficult to really put good tape together. I mean, the film is like, hey, I'm glad that you run a sub 4.4. We're going to have you go run this bubble screen. Good luck. And it's like, what the hell, man? So he's a guy, Adrian, that his film's not going to be great. I thought he looked fine, but truthfully, when you have so many guys who really shine, even if you do well, it's not going to pop as much. He's a guy, Adrian, he's probably going to be in that 3rd to 4th round to me, but he'll probably look really damn good in the combine.
Yeah, he impressed me in the Alamo Bowl. I remember watching it. He had a big game in that particular contest. So as we explained, north side, where pretty much all the better receivers are. South side, there's a couple guys sprinkled in. All right, so I guess we'll just discuss the rest of the Senior Bowl, kind of some names that stood out to you. Who were the big winners of the week, not including the wide receivers?
Oh, Kinlaw is an all-day MFer, as Theo Riddick once let it slip on national. Not Theo Riddick, excuse me. But yeah, he is an all-day type of dude. I mean,
Louis Riddick.
Louis Riddick, yeah. He is absolutely ready to rock and roll in the trenches there. If you're looking for someone to beef up inside, probably going to be a top 15 guy. Obviously, these type of opportunities are always going to favor the defensive line and the offensive line when you get the pass set drills. So that's something I always kind of put with a little bit of a different grading. I can't remember the kid's name. Outside rusher from Michigan. He looks really good, really twitchy. Lewis from Alabama. Yes, he looked pretty nice to me. Linebackers, where are you? They looked just completely forgettable. I mean, I don't think we're going to see much from here. Same thing with the tight end group. I'm kind of, forgettable here as well. But obviously we talk about these games, Adrian, we talk about the quarterbacks. And we got to talk about Jordan Love and Justin Herbert. To me, the biggest question I had with both of these guys is, okay, hey, Justin Herbert, his knock is he maybe is a little bit timid, doesn't really let it rip. And then Jordan Love's question was accuracy and being able to make quick decisions. Jordan Love just didn't do it for me. He really didn't. So to me, it solidifies that Justin Herbert's my 3rd quarterback. But I just rattled a lot of information off at Adrian. So I'm just going to let you kind of pick up the scraps and go from here, brother.
Yeah, it's okay. So you mentioned a lot of things. I wrote some names down as well on my side. Bradley Anai from Utah. I thought he showed some things off the edge, winning some one-on-one battles. I got Jason Strowbridge of North Carolina. There was one particular showdown between the Houston offensive lineman, Josh Jones, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
He put him on the ground. He pancaked him. And Josh Jones was somebody who I initially wasn't high on. And then the 3rd day of practice came, and I was all of a sudden liking Josh Jones. So put him on the ground, pancaked him. That was a big rep I remember seeing. So Jones, Strowbridge, who were the other names I said? Josh Uche, I have him down. Neville Gallimore of Oklahoma. And the only linebacker I have written down here is Evan Weaver of Cal.
Yeah, and I'm just not thrilled about it. I think this is a linebacker class, and it's this catch-22 and talk about the Eagles, right? Every year we know they need linebackers, and every year they're like, yeah,
they do and they don't. They don't really care about them.
No, they don't. And it's like, okay, if that's the way you're gonna roll and invest in it here, when you look at this draft, there's I don't know, Adrian, maybe 3 or 4 linebackers that I actually get excited about. After that, I'm like, I'm good. So for the Eagles, it's hard for me to imagine all of a sudden they're going to say, hey, let's go draft Patrick Queen out of LSU or Kenneth Murray from Oklahoma if they're there. That's just not what the Eagles roll with. So assuming they don't do that, we're going to see the Eagles do the same thing. Day 3, let's just go take a linebacker and see what happens.
Yeah. All right. So I think that's pretty much it here. We rattled off all the names. We talked about all the wide receivers, guys that, that stood out in Mobile, Alabama, guys who could be future Eagles. We'll see. So here's what we're going to do. Again, I kind of explained this earlier in the show, but each week, Brent and I are going to be looking at a different receiver. So let us guys know. Let us know in the comment section who you guys want us to look at first. I'm thinking probably right off the shoot, do we go with Henry Ruggs? Do we go with a big one? As Brendan just left me. I don't know where he went. I don't know. You're doing a circle. I see you on the bottom, but you see you on the screen.
This is weird. I'm here.
Do we hear you?
Can you hear me now?
I don't know. I think we might have just lost you. This might have happened to me before where I did the circle thing and I started lagging. So, okay, you're back. There we go.
Hey.
So I don't know if you actually left or what happened there, but yeah.
No, I was here. I mean, guys, in the comment section, please let us know. Henry Ruggs, I personally think is the dream of all realistic scenarios. I think that's the dream scenario. I don't think Judy's going to be there. I don't think CeeDee Lamb is going to be there. So I'm just going to kind of be the one to crush your dreams and tell you Santa's not real. I don't think those two guys are going to be there. I think Henry Ruggs has a shot, but there's a lot of other guys, whether it's T. Higgins, maybe it's KJ Hamler in a different situation, maybe not at the first round pick unless the Eagles maybe trade back. There's a lot of options here for the Eagles. So please let us know who you want us to dive in deeper on.
Yeah, if Henry Ruggs is there, that's going to be a tough one to pass on. I'll say that. All right, so we'll end it on that note. That is Brendan Albert. I am Adrian Fedq. Again, let us know in the comments section who you guys want us to look at first. I'm thinking it's probably going to be Henry Ruggs. We'll see. But we're out of here. Take care. Peace.
Appreciate it.